Hey, and welcome back to another video. This is the 12th episode of the story where there are so many things that we as humans are unaware of, or lack an understanding. The bijou are one of those things. Follow the journey of Naruto Uzumaki as he befriends the yokai that was sealed inside of him and, she, helps him grow stronger. Please support by liking and subscribing. Let's start the show. Everyone was forced to wake up early the next morning, and though Naruto and Akane had wanted to sleep in, it wasn't like they couldn't deal with having gone most of the night without. Akane was a creature of incredible power, a being that naturally surpassed human limitations. Going with very little sleep wasn't a problem for her. There had been some years where Akane would only get maybe a few hours of sleep per week. Naruto had been trained by Akane. Since his early childhood, she had drilled everything she knew into him, pushed his body and mind to the limit, and transformed him into something other than human. Little sleep wouldn't hurt him. Some of his missions during his stint in Kirigakure had required that he go on little sleep. The entire group of Konoha ninja were given a hearty breakfast courtesy of the inn staff. Of course, Akane and Naruto, being what they were, ate about 10 times more than Enko and Haku. Chuji, who had been sitting beside them, had worn a gobsmacked expression as the pair of them ate even more than he did. After breakfast, Jiraiya paid the people innkeeper for the rooms they had booked, and then directed them all outside, where their journey began again. With a surprise. "You brats got a problem?" Tsunade asked the genin surrounding her, namely, Ino, Sakura, and Tenten. The three of them were staring at the blonde woman with starstruck expressions. Actually, Tenten was the worst. She had been staring at Tsunade like the woman was the richest piece of prime beef she had ever come across. It was honestly kind of gross. "No, ma'am," Sakura squeaked. "We were just surprised, Lady Tsunade. We didn't expect you to be traveling to the Chunin exams as well. Let's just say that something happened the other night to spark my interest," Tsunade said mysteriously. Sakura could only tilt her head. Tsunade had joined the group of traveling ninja. When Jiraiya had asked her why she was coming with them, her response had been that she could travel wherever she wanted. Of course, the place where they were traveling to was Kirigakure. Naruto wasn't sure if Tsunade was technically allowed to travel out of Hai no Kuni, even if it was with a group of Konoha ninja. However, Jiraiya didn't seem to have a problem with it. If anything, he had been quite enthusiastic about letting her come with them. Whether this was because he wanted Tsunade to come, or because of a reason that Naruto had yet to discern was another matter. The two had a shared history, so, perhaps, he just wanted to catch up, though, again, Naruto wasn't sure how much he believed that. Their journey took them all the way to a port town, a decently sized village that sat on the coast and was wedged between a pair of hills that were too large to really be called hills, but couldn't quite be called mountains either. The time it took to reach the port town was much shorter. Many of the shinobi had pushed themselves a bit harder that day to reach the port before midday. Konoha's terrain consisted mostly of forests and hilly plains. The combination of plains and forests was part of what made Konoha such an appealing place to live. The year-round mild climate helped. It was easy to travel quickly in such great weather. During a good portion of the journey, Jiraiya had stared at Naruto from his place at the front, as though wondering if Naruto would ever talk to him. Of course, the reason for that was because Naruto had told Jiraiya they would talk tomorrow. However, it wasn't like they'd had any time so far. Everyone had been woken up early, then been hauled out of the inn after eating breakfast, and then they spent the rest of their time walking. While Naruto supposed he could have gone up to Jiraiya during their journey, he didn't think talking to him right then would be a good idea. Whatever his godfather wanted to talk about was probably personal and private. I can already make a few guesses. There were two obvious topics that Jiraiya was likely to bring up, Akane and the fact that Jiraiya was his godfather. Naruto couldn't think of anything else. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, would have definitely told Jiraiya about Akane's true nature. He was certain Jiraiya knew. The man had looked at Akane almost as much as he had glanced at Naruto. And, of course, Naruto was Jiraiya's godson. Jiraiya was the man who had trained his father. Naruto had absolutely no idea how he should feel about this. He didn't hate Jiraiya, of course, but he also didn't like the man. If anything, his stance and feelings toward his own godfather were neutral at best. He just didn't feel anything for the Sannin one way or the other. As they stepped into the bustling port town, which had more people than Naruto would have thought, and all of them wandering through the streets in a harried manner, Jiraiya turned to everyone and said, "We're a little early. The shinobi we're supposed to be meeting should be at the eastern port in a few hours. Because of that, I'm gonna give everyone an hour of free time. You can wander around the village and explore. Just be sure to travel toward the eastern docks after the hour is up. Anyone who has not made it on time will be left behind." With a dismissal like that, the genin were all too eager to head off on their own, or travel with their genin squad. They dispersed quickly. Even the genin in his group began wandering off, with Chuji searching for a place to eat, Shikamaru heading toward a place where he could cloud watch, and Ino grumbling before she followed Chuji. He didn't think she was going to eat, but it would probably be more entertaining with Chuji than Shikamaru. Likewise, Rock Lee and Niji dispersed quicker than he would have thought possible. Tsunade also went off on her own. Well, Shizune followed her like a faithful puppy, and the pig she carried was with her, but Naruto almost considered those two an accessory by this point. On a side note, Tenten followed Tsunade like another faithful puppy. He felt almost bad for the woman. "Shall we also head out?" Shino asked as he pushed his shades up the bridge of his nose. "Hell yeah, we should." Kiba cheered. "I want to explore a bit before we have to get aboard a cramped boat. Right, Akamaru?" The little white puppy that had been sitting on Kiba's head barked his assent. Hinata opted to stare at Naruto and Akane before, with slow deliberation, she nodded her own agreement with Shino's words. He was honestly grateful. The girl had been staring at him and his mate for most of the journey. It was pretty nerve-wracking, actually. While he wouldn't go so far as to say he was concerned about her trying anything, the intensity in her gaze was on a whole different level than it used to be. "What should we do?" asked Akane as she, Enko, and Haku stood around him. I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'm thinking of seeing if they have a ramen shop somewhere around here," Naruto muttered, rubbing his belly. He wasn't an Akamichi, but he still ate quite a bit. "I'm pretty hungry myself," Akane agreed. She looked at the other two. "Wanna find a place to eat with us?" "Nah." Enko waved them off. "I'm going to be wandering around with my colleagues." She indicated the group of jonin who were waiting for her. It was Kakashi, Kurenai, Madogai, and Asuma. They were standing just a little ways off. "You brats can go off on your own. I'm not really interested in ramen," Haku added as his way of declining. Naruto shrugged. "Suit yourself." These two clearly still didn't understand ramen's greatness, but he wouldn't force it on them. That would have been an insult to the ramen gods. The group parted ways. Naruto walked hand in hand around the village with Akane, head turning left and right. His initial estimation that the people of this village were all in a hurry hadn't been quite right. The way many of them scurried around made him think of rats running from a cat, and just as there were many people moving every which way, there were just as many who listlessly sat on the ground. There was a difference between the people sitting and the people wandering. Clothing. While all of the clothing worn by those moving around was traditional of standard villagers' garb, in other words, cotton pants and a shirt, the people on the ground looked like sailors. They wore uniforms. Some of the uniforms were ragged and dirty, but Naruto recognized the styles for what they were. "What do you think is going on here?" asked Naruto. "I couldn't say with any certainty," Akane said as she studied the people on the ground. "But if I had to guess, I'd say these sailors are currently landlocked here. Landlocked was a term generally used to describe a place that was entirely surrounded by land. That Akane used it here meant these sailors were somehow unable to leave port. This could be for any number of reasons, from the sea was too dangerous to sail, to pirates were attacking ships, to a monster was attacking ships. And on that note, Naruto really hoped they weren't dealing with another Kaima. As they walked around the village, a commotion several meters off caught their attention. They looked in that direction. A man was lying on his backside, trembling in terror as another man stood over him. While the man on the ground had the look of a commoner, the man towering over him wore a black and white sailor uniform. He wasn't alone either. Two other men in sailor uniforms were with him. One of them was busting up a small wooden stall, which Naruto could only guess the owner of was the man lying on the ground. "What did you say to us?" the man in front of the commoner snarled. "Two said you have to pay for that food if you want it," the commoner stuttered. "Listen here, you little shit." The man leaned down and glared at the commoner with enough rage that the man on the ground shook like a leaf caught within a wind jutsu. "The only reason you were even able to get this food is because we traveled all over the elemental nations to deliver it to you. If you want to get technical, this food here is ours. There's nothing wrong in taking what's ours." It was a common sight when sailors were landlocked. Naruto had once heard a saying about how sailors belonged to the sea. If that was true, then being on land was probably driving them stir crazy. This also made Naruto realize that the citizens were probably moving quickly to avoid getting caught up in trouble with the sailors. Now that he was looking at the one sitting on the ground more closely, he could see the crazy gleam in their eyes, the hints of madness eating away at them. I wonder how long they'd been stuck on land. More importantly than how long they'd been there was why they were still on land. Why weren't they sailing the seas? That was a question for another time. Right now what Naruto needed to do was stop those three sailors before things turned ugly. Uglier than they already were. However, before either he or Akane could do much of anything, three blurs leapt down from a roof and landed on the ground. Except they weren't blurs. They were people. The trio of individuals, two girls and one boy, crouched low on the ground, but it was only for a moment before they launched themselves across the street at a rather impressive pace. Each of them had selected a target and were on said targets faster than an Akamichi on food. "I guess we weren't needed at all," Naruto mumbled as the three people, young ninja with Kirigakure headbands, easily dealt with the sailors. The guy and one of the girls landed a punch on the two wrecking the food stall. Naruto could hear the loud cracking of fists meeting skulls from where he stood. Both sailors crumbled to the ground like puppet without a puppeteer. Meanwhile, the other remaining female had launched the sailor intimidating the commoner away with a powerful flying kick. Akane whistled. "They aren't too bad." "Well, they have good form at least," Naruto said. Since they were just fighting against sailors, who were no stronger than a regular civilian, it wasn't that impressive. That said, he did have to give them credit. Their reaction time to this problem was most impressive. "Are you okay, sir?" asked the girl as she knelt before the man, her long ponytail of blonde hair pooling along the ground, and offered her hand. Her ponytail ended in a gleaming silver knife that was attached to the tips. "Yes, I am fine. Thank you," the man said as he was helped to his feet. The girl smiled. "Think nothing of it." Her black shorts ruffled as she moved, and the white bandages wrapped around her arms and legs contrasted with her shorts and asymmetrical shirt, which had only a single sleeve. Aside from the knife in her hair, she also wore a pair of gloves with metal knuckles on them, and her shoes were not the traditional shinobi sandals. They were closetoed boots with more metal on them. From that and the knife, Naruto guessed she was a melee fighter. The man who she had sent flying was already out cold, and the two other individuals with her, a boy that had light orange hair and green eyes and a girl with black hair and purple eyes, had also made quick work of their opponents. Since they were Kiri ninja, Naruto had no problem wandering up to them as he clapped. "That was pretty good work," he said, making the girl's head snap over to him and Akane. I was about to step in myself when you three beat me to it. Did we interfere? The girl asked, rubbing the back of her head and smiling. Sorry about that. Naruto shrugged. Nah, it just means you did what we would have done. I'm Naruto, by the way, and this is Akane. Hello, Akane greeted. Nice to meet you too, the girl said with a polite nod. My name is Akiha. I see you two are from Konoha. Am I correct in assuming that you're on your way to Kirigakure for the Chunin selection exam? You assume correctly, Akane said. I see, Akiha murmured. I guess that means the rest of Konoha's group is also here. They are. Jiraiya went to speak with someone from Kirigakure, your sensei, I'm guessing, over by the East Port, Naruto said. While they spoke, the two other Kirigakure ninja walked up to them. Looking at them more closely, Naruto saw how they bore a slight resemblance to each other. Their hair and eyes were different, but the shape of their face and bone structure was similar. Siblings maybe. While the boy wore gray pants that ruffled as he moved, the girl wore a black skirt. Both of them were wearing camouflage tops, but the boy's was long-sleeved while the girl's was nothing but a vest that was open around the middle. She wore mesh armor underneath. Reminds me of Anko, almost. I hadn't realized Konoha was already here, Akiha said before gesturing to her two companions. This is Kiriha and Mozu. Nice to meet you, said the girl called Kiriha. Mozu did not speak, but he did take a notepad from his back pocket, scribbled on it, and presented to them. Pleasure to make your acquaintance, it said. There was also a tiny chibi drawing of Mozu on the front. It was waving at them. Naruto wasn't all that shocked by the strange mannerisms of the boy. Why would he be after all the crap he had seen? He grinned at the trio. It's nice to meet you. His grin widening, Naruto asked the question that would spark a new friendship. Say, you wouldn't happen to know of any ramen shops, would you? As a matter of fact, I do, Akiha said, her eyes suddenly lighting up like a pair of fire dragon jutsus. I've been in this town for 2 days now, so I know where all the good ramen shops are. Soma's Ramen makes great shrimp ramen, but they aren't good at making anything else. There's also tonkatsu. They do mostly traditional stuff. Miso. Pork. However, since this is a port town, you really should try the seafood ramen from Koryu's. It's a specialty of the village. You can't make a stop here without trying it at least once. Can you show us the way? Asked Naruto. Of course. In fact, all that fighting has made me awfully hungry myself. You just want to eat more ramen, Kiriha sighed. Did you say something? Nope. Good. Then come on. I'll show you two the way. As Naruto, Akane, Mozu, and a reluctant Kiriha followed Akiha to Koryu's, Akane patted the black-haired young woman on the shoulder. I understand exactly how you feel. My mate is also a ramen-obsessed freak. Your sympathy is appreciated. And thus another friendship was born out of a shared compassion by two people who knew a ramen fanatic. Ten-tailed wolf docks looked the same no matter the nation. That was Jiraiya's thought, at least, as he walked down the wooden docks in search of the Kirigakure ninja he was supposed to meet with. He had a name and a basic description. That was it. The man he was looking for was named A.O., middle-aged with blue hair that was styled in a moused-up manner. He had an eye patch, and wore a talisman in each ear. Jiraiya knew of the man thanks to his bingo book entry. Ao was the only non-Hyuga to have a Byakugan. According to his information, this man, a former hunter nin, had implanted the Byakugan during the Third Great Shinobi War. In other words, he was not to be underestimated. Ao was not at the docks. Jiraiya frowned before, with a sigh, he decided to check with the dockmaster, which he probably would have done first. Thinking on it, his decision not to wasn't the brightest, but he was in a hurry. Jiraiya wanted to get this out of the way quickly so he could have a proper conversation with his godson. Even though I have no idea what I'm going to say. The dockmaster's building was a large structure made of logs and brick. It didn't look like much on the outside, just a regular building with a triangle roof made of red tiles. There was a sign hanging from the large doorway that read, Fisherman's Dock. What an original name. Stepping into the dockmaster's building revealed that quite a few people were already inside. There were a number of clerical workers standing behind a table, speaking with several angry sailors who were demanding to leave. Jiraiya caught only snippets of their conversation. He didn't pay it much attention, though. Whatever they were speaking about had nothing to do with him. This was only the first floor. Walking along the wooden tiles, Jiraiya went to the staircase, walked up, and ended up on a balcony overlooking the first floor. There was no hallway or anything up there. However, there was a door, which he walked up to. He raised his hand to knock, but paused upon hearing voices inside. "That's why I'm telling you, just let my ninja and I handle this," a voice said, anger slightly masked by a calm facade. "You mean for a fee?" another voice said. Jiraiya could practically hear the head shake. "Look, I don't have the money to pay you ninja right now. And I'm telling you that's okay. We can work out a payment plan once you get back on your feet." Without having any idea what this argument was about, Jiraiya decided to finally be a nosy busybody and opened the door without knocking. He entered a small office. It wasn't much. There were 4 walls, a ceiling, a desk, and 2 chairs, along with a few portraits, but not much else. 2 people were inside. The man sitting behind the desk was large. His girth wasn't quite that of an Akimichi's, but he wasn't small either. He had short hair and black eyes, and his garb, a plain vest and pants, was the kind Jiraiya expected from someone who controlled a dock like this. The man looked like a lazy fisherman with too much time on his hands. It was the other man who caught his attention, however. Moused-up blue hair. An eye patch covering one eye. Talismans with kanji on them, which jangled as he moved. He wore the standard outfit of a hunter nin, a gray suit with a green kimono that had white trimmings which stopped halfway down the outfit. A standard ninja pouch was tied to his waist via a brown obi. Yes, this man was definitely AO. "I went all around the dock searching for you, and you were here the whole time." Jiraiya sighed as he took several steps into the room. "I guess that's what I get for being impatient and not thinking things through properly." In hindsight, it should have been obvious that AO would be meeting with the dockmaster, given what little he'd seen of the village. Jiraiya was going to be kicking himself for this one. "You are Jiraiya of the Sannin," AO said. "I had been told that you were the one in charge of escorting the genin squads to Kirigakure." The man bowed. "I am AO, no surname. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." "Likewise." Jiraiya stopped in front of the desk. "Or so I would like to say, but it sounds like we have a problem on our hands. Mind filling me in?" AO scratched his head, glanced at the dockmaster, and then sighed. "About 2 months ago, the seas outside of town became dangerous." "Dangerous how?" asked Jiraiya, narrowing his eyes. "The sea is swarming with demons," the dockmaster exclaimed. AO glared at the man, but conceded with a nod. "My company and I were unaware of this when we set sail and ended up smack in the middle of an entire sea of demon spawn. My squad and I managed to escape, but our vessel and the crew are no more." The glare returned. "Ever since then, I have been trying to convince this man to let me take a small ship and eliminate the demons, but he hasn't budged." The dockmaster crossed his arms. "Of course I won't. You are asking me to let you take one of my vessels so you can fight a horde of demons, and then you plan on charging me for it. Not only do I not have the money for such a mission request, but there's a good chance that my vessel will be destroyed in the process." Jiraiya understood well the man's concern, especially since it was very valid. If the sea truly was teeming with demons, then there was little chance of a vessel going near them coming out unscathed. Of more concern, however, was the knowledge that demons were off the coast. While the elemental nations did occasionally have run-ins with demons, it was usually just one or two. Jiraiya himself had fought a few demons in his day. However, they had always been alone. He'd never heard of a swarm appearing before. "What can you tell me about these demons?" asked Jiraiya. Ao crossed his arms. "Not much. They attacked us before we could get our bearings, and there were so many that I deemed it more prudent to retreat than stick around and gather information. What I can tell you is that most of them are serpent-type demons, though there were a few that resembled aquatic life." "Numbers?" "I don't know." Shaking his head, Ao's face became the very definition of frustrated. "There were so many that I couldn't get an accurate count. Not even with your Byakugan." "I'm not surprised you know about that." A mirthless grin appeared on his face. "Yes, even with my Byakugan. There were simply too many to count. I want to do some scouting to get an accurate estimation of their numbers, but they are too far out. If I walked that far, I'd run out of chakra quickly once I activated my Byakugan. Jujutsu like the Byakugan and the Sharingan consumed a lot of chakra to use. There was a reason Kakashi kept his Sharingan underneath his headband. They only come in close when a ship leaves port," the dockmaster added. "Whenever no one leaves, the demons stay further away from town, which is another reason I'm not letting ships set sail. I don't want the demons to get any closer and attack the village." It was a prudent course of action, to be sure. If the demons came close when ships left, it meant they might eventually come close enough to start attacking the town. If that happened, this place wouldn't survive. One demon was often enough to destroy a village that didn't have any strong military presence. A swarm would decimate a place like this. As he thought about the situation, Jiraiya realized that he might actually have a solution to this problem, and it would even give him a good excuse to speak with his godson. "Don't worry, you too," Jiraiya said. "Now that I have a more accurate picture of the problem, I believe I have the perfect solution for it." He grinned. "Or rather, I know a pair of individuals who would be perfect for fixing this predicament." Ten-tailed wolf, "Ah. This really is good. See? I told you, didn't I?" They were sitting in a small stand, Naruto, Akane, and the three Kirigakure ninja that they had met, Bakiha, Kiriha, and Mozu. All of them had a bowl of ramen sitting on the counter in front of them. The floorboards creaked underneath the weight of their stools as Naruto shifted in his seat. It was the only sound outside of the clicking of chopsticks, the slurping of ramen noodles, and the delighted conversation between Naruto and his new ramen buddy. The flavor of the stock isn't overpowering. It blends in perfectly with the vegetables and fish cakes. Naruto grabbed some more noodles with his chopsticks, twirled them around so they wouldn't fall off, slurped them into his mouth, and gave a satisfied sigh after he swallowed them. What's more, the noodles are absorbing the flavors from the stock and vegetables. Right? And don't forget about the seafood, Bakiha added. Grinning, she slurped up more noodles before popping a piece of shrimp into her mouth. It's made from a variety of seafood, including shrimp, lobster, crab, cod, and sea bass. All of it has been simmered together so the flavors blend. This would normally create a very pungent taste and odor. However, the cooking techniques Kiryu uses creates a rich taste where the umami from each type of seafood works in harmony together. How could I possibly forget about the seafood? Naruto snatched up a small piece of calamari and popped it into his mouth, almost squealing as a burst of intense flavor danced on his tongue. I've rarely ever tasted a seafood ramen that was so rich in flavor. The owner of the establishment, a surprisingly young woman with blonde hair and green eyes, smiled cheerfully as the two ninja gushed over her food. I am glad you two like my ramen so much. It's the best, Bakiha and Naruto said at the same time before holding out their now empty bowls. Seconds please. Coming right up. As the owner began working on their next order, Naruto and Akiha began chatting about ramen. It turned out that, like him, Akiha was a big fan of ramen. She might even love it more than he did. He shook his head. No. There was no way that was true, but she was definitely a fellow ramen connoisseur. Not only did she make it a point of trying out every ramen stand in every town she ever visited, but she also had a book filled with lists of all the different brands and flavors of instant ramen. Naruto had never seen a more extensive collection. And I got this one while I was on a mission that took me through Kaminari no Kuni, Akiha said as she flipped through the pages of a large, spiral-bound notebook. It was a really small village, and the broth for their instant ramen cups was made from a unique root found only in that region. It wasn't the best, but I was really surprised to find a powdered broth made from such a strange plant. This is so cool. Naruto said. I've never seen such an extensive collection before. Thank you. I've been collecting ramen lids for about 3 years now. I can't believe my mate is actually gushing over instant ramen lids. Akane sighed, and then she paused. No, wait. I can. This is just like him. Even though Naruto could hear his mate's words, he didn't pay much attention to them. Akane knew he loved ramen, but she had never understood where his love for it came from. Ramen was his first love. It was a love that had sprung forth before the two of them had met, before he had discovered that she was sealed inside of him. We understand how you feel, Kiriha said. Our partner always gets like this whenever she talks about ramen. It's pretty hard to deal with. Mozu scribbled something on his trusty notepad and slid it over to Akane. Naruto didn't know what the note said, but whatever it was made the redhead smile, so it couldn't be too bad. It was probably making fun of him, though. By the way, you called Naruto your mate, Kiriha changed subjects. What is that? Like a boyfriend? Not really. Shaking her head, Akane endeavored to explain. He is my mate. The closest thing I can think of is a married couple. In many ways, Naruto and I are married. The marriage itself is not certified on paper, but he and I are bound by a bond even stronger than a certificate that says we're married. Oh. That's so romantic. Kiriha clasped her hands together, eyes sparkling as she stared up at something only she could see. It's so wonderful to see such a powerful bond of love. Love is the greatest gift in the universe. Without love, we would be nothing but apes. No, we would be less than apes. We would be like those single-celled life forms that don't know love. Aha. Akane murmured. Well, I do think love is important. Mozu wrote something again. Whatever it was caused Akane to burst out laughing and Kiriha to turn red in the face. That is so mean, the Kirigakure ninja said. Just because I haven't had much luck with relationships doesn't mean I'm not an expert on the subject. I know everything there is to know about love. Naruto perked up at the same time that his mate did. Those words. They were the perfect opening. It was like this woman was begging to let them tease her. If you're an expert on love, then you must also be an expert on sex, right? Akane said. Excuse me. Kiriha squeaked at Akane's sudden use of the sword. You know, sex. Fucking. Copulation. Tapping dat ass. Banging. Screw dash, I know what sex is. Kiriha shouted. By now she had grown so embarrassed that steam was coming off her ears. What I mean is. What does that have to do with love? Everything, Naruto said. Would you not want to become intimate with the one you love? You can't get more intimate than sex. It seemed that while Kiriha was all about love, sex was another matter entirely. Just watching her try, and fail, to find the words she needed to express herself was hilarious. The way her face burned like it was being slowly roasted over an open fire was also amusing. Just then, the flaps to the stand rustled as two people stepped in, saving the poor gal from further humiliation at his and Akane's hands. One of them was Jiraiya. The other person was Ao, a man who Naruto recognized from having fought alongside him during the civil war in Kirigakure. Did that mean he was the Jonin sensei for these kids? Naruto would have never suspected that this man would become an instructor. The two easily spotted the 5 of them sitting at the counter. Naruto, Akane. There you two are, Jiraiya said. Akiha, Kiriha, Mozu, Ao greeted. I see you 3 are eating ramen. Again. You know that's not healthy for you. It's okay, teach, Akiha said while waving her hand. I have a high metabolism. That isn't the point. Ao sighed. You 3 might not have a problem now, but it'll eventually become problematic. This is the problem with youth. Back in my day. As Ao proceeded to lecture his students on how ninja in his day were actually concerned with their health, much to the chagrin of Kiriha and Mozu, Jiraiya spoke to Naruto and Akane. It looks like we've got a problem, he began without preamble. I'm assuming it's one you need our help with, asked Akane. Yes. What kind of problem is it, asked Naruto. A demon problem, Jiraiya said seriously. It took about 15 minutes for Jiraiya to explain the problem, but by the time he finished, Akane and Naruto had a clear understanding of the situation. They didn't show it, but they were shocked. Akane had already mentioned how demons couldn't reach the elemental nations easily. A few could slip through the barrier. However, it was impossible for such a large amount to appear. Unless they were summoned. The problem was they couldn't see any reason for someone to summon these demons. It would be one thing if they were summoned for a specific purpose, but from what Jiraiya had said, the demons were just kind of floating off the coast, not doing anything threatening unless a ship came into their vicinity. Regardless of the hows or whys, it did sound like they had a problem, and he and Akane were just the right people to deal with it. That was why they, along with Jiraiya and Ao, traveled out to sea, where the demons were lurking. The 3 Kirigakure genin stayed on the shore. They had complained about not being able to follow, but none of them had the chakra capacity necessary to travel that far out. The demons were about 5 kilometers off the coast. It was far enough that they weren't causing a problem to the port town, but according to Jiraiya's information, if a vessel ever left, the demons would swarm in and devour the entire ship. Standing about 1 kilometer from where the demons lurked, Naruto stared at the writhing sea of eldritch horrors. They were fairly close. Had Akane not cast a jutsu that masked their chakra signatures and presence, the demons would have already discovered them. There were many different types. Most of them were lesser demons. Winged serpents, giant angler fishes, and the like. However, Naruto actually saw a few higher demons, including a leviathan, which he only caught a glimpse of as a massive black shadow beneath the water's surface. That is a lot of demons, Akane muttered, brow furrowing in concern. There are so many signatures I can't even get an accurate estimation. It doesn't help that the leviathan is so powerful its presence is likely masking a lot of the other ones. You seem to know an awful lot about demons, Ao said with a frown. As well I should. Akane sniffed. Fighting against demons is my specialty. Of course, Ao couldn't know that Akane was actually a divine being created by the gods to battle against demons. That information was currently classified. Mei Terumi would probably learn of this during the Chunin exam, but she would have to make the call on who among her forces could know. Do you have any idea about how we can take care of them? Asked Jiraiya. I can deal with this many demons easily enough. It's not like any of them are exceedingly powerful. Even the Leviathan is only a mid-level demon. It's just really big. Akane turned her head toward Naruto. Would you be so kind? Right. Just give me a second. Naruto knelt and pressed his hands against the water's surface, taking a calming breath before, all at once, infusing his chakra into the water. He had to be fast. The demons would quickly sense the application of chakra. Indeed, already the massive swarm of demons were writhing in agitation as they sensed the incredible wellspring of power flowing through the water. The shadow of the Leviathan was already coming toward them. "Oh, shit. This is not good," Jiraiya muttered. Ao, his eyes having grown disproportionately wide, shook as the massive shadow drew closer at a speed that would put most Jonin to shame. "That thing is coming right for us." "Don't worry," Naruto said. "I've finished my jutsu." As if his words were the K, a large barrier suddenly sprang up around the area where the demons were. It looked like a blue dome, though it was actually a sphere meant to trap all of the demons inside of it. The Leviathan slammed into this barrier. Static discharges of energy crackled everywhere. However, the barrier held. "Now's your chance," Naruto said. "Right." Akane grinned. "Watch and learn, boys." Leaping high into the air, Akane took a quick survey of the area swarming with demons before gathering large amounts of Yuki around her. She took all of that energy and compressed it between her hands. What appeared was a tiny sphere no larger than her palm. It was a brilliant white that would have blinded most, except all that light was contained and didn't leak out. With a grin still on her face, Akane threw the sphere, which exploded with a loud sonic boom as it tore apart the sound barrier. A hole opened up at the top of the barrier, allowing the sphere to pass through. It then struck the water. Everything inside of the barrier went white. Completely white. Nothing could be seen inside of the blue sphere of energy, which crackled as it tried to contain the massive amounts of power from Akane's technique. Fortunately, Naruto was quite powerful in his own right, and he had pumped more than enough energy into the barrier so that it wouldn't break. The light soon died down. Akane landed on the ground as Naruto released the barrier. He was sweating a bit, but after checking his reserves, knew that he'd be fine if he rested for at least an hour. Looking at the area now devoid of any demonic presence, Akane nodded to herself. That had been rather easy. It was a good thing all those demons had stuck within a contained area. Had they spread themselves out, she wouldn't have been able to deal with them in a single technique. There. Akane spun around and smiled at the stunned Jiraiya and Ao. Problem solved. Ten-tailed Wolf Akiha had no idea what happened out there at sea, but when Ao returned, his expression was so grave that she couldn't even ask about what happened. All he would say was that the problem had been taken care of. The next thing she knew, they, along with the many squads of Konoha ninja that would take part in the Chunin exams, had boarded the vessel that would take them all to Kiri. This ship wasn't the last one they would take. Sadly, they had been forced to book passage with a cargo ship that was heading to Mizu no Kuni. Since their original ship had been destroyed, they would have to acquire a new one upon reaching their first stopping point. Akiha and her two companions had been ordered to head into their room, while Ao, their sensei, spoke with Jiraiya about something. While curious, she knew better than to ask questions. The three of them traveled down to the room where they would be staying, a simple 4-bed room that was about 2 meters wide and 4 long. Each of them had taken a bed, and there they waited. "I'm so bored," Akiha grumbled. "We all are," Kiriha said. She was sitting 2 beds over, while Mozu had taken the bed in between them. Mozu was lying on his back. Kiriha was sitting cross-legged. Mozu scribbled on his notepad. "There is no use complaining about it." "I know." Akiha sighed. Putting her hands on the bed behind her, she leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "I wonder what had Ao so spooked." "You two saw the look on his face when he came back, right?" "I did." Kiriha nodded as she uncrossed her legs and hung them off the bed, swinging them back and forth. "I also saw the satisfied looks on Naruto and Akane. Something definitely went down, and I have a feeling they are cause." "You would be correct in assuming that," Ao said as he walked into the room. "Ao sensei." Akiha and Kiriha said. Mozu just wrote the same thing on his notepad. It looks like Mei Terumi's belief was correct, Ao told them. I want you three to be wary of those two. They aren't who they appear to be. None of them knew what Ao Sensei meant by that, though they assumed there was something about the two that the Mizukage and their sensei knew that no one else did. Just what that something was, they couldn't begin to fathom. However, even if they didn't know why he wanted them to exercise caution, it didn't change their orders. Yes, sensei. Akiha and Kiriha said. Mozu didn't say anything. He wrote it on his notepad. Ten-tailed wolf Naruto was beginning to notice a pattern with his more recent missions. All of them were taking place on the ocean. Well, technically speaking, this wasn't a mission, but even so, it didn't change that this event and his last mission similarly took place at sea. Even the mission to Wave Country had been technically near the ocean. He stood on the bow of the ship, watching as the tip cut through the waves, moving smoothly through the waters with little effort. This cargo freighter was larger than the ships he'd been on before. He guessed that was the reason it didn't rock as much. Something to do with the distribution of weight maybe. He didn't really know. Akane was with him. She stood by his side, holding his hands, their fingers laced. Jiraiya will be here soon, she said. He sighed. I know. Are you going to talk to him? Yeah. It's not like I have much choice. Thinking about, Naruto didn't have anything against Jiraiya. He was apathetic at best. It was hard to say whether he wanted to build a relationship with the man, though, not because he didn't like Jiraiya, but because Naruto just wasn't sure if he had any desire for it. Akane was the only person he needed. I suppose not, Akane said. Since this was a cargo freighter, several sailors wearing blue and white uniforms were moving around the deck. Some were scrubbing the floors, some were moving supplies, a few were giving orders, and some were climbing up the massive poles where the lookout stations were. Because there were so many people, Naruto almost missed the footsteps heading his way, walking with a steady, measured pace. He didn't need to turn around to know that it was Jiraiya. It wasn't long before the man stopped right next to him, standing on the side opposite of Akane. He glanced at them out of the corner of his eye. Sarutobi Sensei had told me about how you two were crazy strong, but I don't think I quite believed it until I saw you two in action. He told you about Akane and I, right? He told you everything. I don't know if he told me everything, but he did tell me that you've been trained by Akane for several years. He also said that Akane was a divine being sent here by the gods to fight against demons. That's close enough to the truth, Akane said. We gave Sarutobi a lot of information. I doubt he'd be able to tell you all of it in the time you've had so far. I spent at least a week giving him information every day to mull over. I guess. An awkward silence hung in the air. Naruto waited to see if Jiraiya was going to bring up the fire dragon in the room, but when the man said nothing, he frowned. So. It seems you really are more powerful than even most jonin. Jiraiya scratched his head as though trying to figure out how to bring up the topic that he really wanted to speak about. I'm guessing you don't really need any training. Even if I did, Akane knows more than any human does, Naruto added. I also know almost all of my dad's jutsu that are useful to me. Really, the only thing I'm still lacking is experience, and that can only be solved by going on missions and fighting strong enemies. I help with that, too, Akane said. However, I'm not much of a taijutsu fighter. Outside of my overwhelming speed, strength, and reflexes, I don't have a lot going for me since I've never needed to learn taijutsu. I see, Jiraiya said, looking away. That isn't really what you want to talk to me about, though, is it, Godfather? Having come this far into the conversation, Naruto figured out that Jiraiya was not going to bring this up. That meant he had to. Jiraiya's shoulders slumped. I guess it only makes sense that you know about that. I shouldn't be surprised. He paused. Are you mad at me for not being around? Why would I be mad? Asked Naruto. I'm sure you had your reasons for not visiting. Seeing me must have been a painful reminder of what you lost. I get that. He shrugged. Though if I'm being honest, I'm somewhat apathetic about you. I don't hate you, but you and I don't really have a connection either. Yeah, Jiraiya said in a voice that epitomized depression, I guess we don't. Naruto felt a small twinge in his chest. He was only being honest, but he sort of realized that honesty would hurt Jiraiya, who was clearly trying to gain some kind of connection. However, Naruto didn't know what kind of connection this man was looking for. Did he want to gain that connection because he wanted to be a part of Naruto's life, or was he only doing this to retain that last connection to Naruto's father, Jiraiya's former apprentice? Naruto didn't know. That kept him from really wanting to make any connection at all. However, I wouldn't be adverse to us spending some time together, Naruto said, extending an olive branch. Jiraiya jerked back as though startled, staring wide-eyed at Naruto with the look of someone who had been struck in the face. One moment passed. Then, his expression softening, Jiraiya smiled. I would like that, Jiraiya said softly. I'll give you two some time alone, Akane said. She kissed Naruto on the lips, smiled, and then wandered off. Jiraiya watched her as she went. It's almost hard to believe that's the Kyuubi. Believe it or don't. It won't change the facts, Naruto said. I'm not saying I don't believe it, Jiraiya defended. I'm just saying it's shocking. Everything we know about the Kyuubi has been turned on its head. Even though I believe it, a part of me doesn't want to. Naruto allowed himself a nod. I suppose I understand that. No one remembers the truth about the bijou. Humans have forgotten all about what they really are, and so fear and hatred has caused us to seal them inside of objects and people to be used as weapons. That does seem to be the case, Jiraiya admitted reluctantly. He probably didn't want to admit that humanity was wrong. Naruto sort of understood the concept, even if he didn't get it. He blamed that on having been raised by Akane. He couldn't really relate to humanity, and not just because he was only half human. So, would you tell me some stories about the times you spent with my dad? Naruto asked. Jiraiya looked startled for a moment, but he eventually settled into a smile and said, I'd be happy to. The rest of their time was spent with Jiraiya regaling Naruto with tales of all his old man's misadventures as a genin. 10-tailed wolf 3 days wasn't necessarily a long time, but when there was nothing to do, when you couldn't have sex with your mate because you were sharing a room with 2 other people, 3 days felt like forever. By this point in time, Naruto was pretty much sick of being on a boat. He wanted to fuck. Akane had it even worse. Naruto liked sex, but Akane was even more into sex than him. It was her favorite pastime outside of teasing people. 3 days with no sex, for if they included the day at the small village where they met Tsunade, and Akane's eyes had become bloodshot and her movements listless, as though she was going through sex withdrawals. Naruto spent most of that time exploring the ship itself, though that got him into some trouble. He received a lecture from the captain about how he was getting in their way. Instead of exploring, Naruto and Akane ended up spending most of their time either snuggling on the deck, chatting with Haku and Anko, or speaking with Jiraiya. His conversations with Jiraiya were odd. It felt more like they were exchanging information than bonding. Naruto told him about his training with Akane, about some of his misadventures, and Jiraiya told him about his father and mother, Minato and Kushina. Quite a few of the stories were very interesting. The one about how his dad saved his mom when she was kidnapped by Kumo was particularly heartwarming. Another group of people that he spoke to was Akiha, Kiriha, and Mozu, the Kirigakure ninja that he had first met. They were an interesting bunch, though they seemed wary of him now. He didn't get it. They had gotten along so well during their first meeting, but now when they spoke, it seemed like the trio were walking on eggshells. He wondered what was up with them. After reaching Mizu no Kuni, they switched vessels. The one they were on now was merely a cargo freighter. To reach Kirigakure, they needed travel on a ship that had a crew who knew the way. Their next vessel, which was much smaller than the cargo ship, took them to Kirigakure without incident. It didn't take more than a few hours to reach Kirigakure from the small island they had arrived at. The ship set down in a fairly decent-sized dock. There were already several ships stationed there. Most were small, like the one they were on, but a few were around the same size as the cargo freighter. Jiraiya had all of them gather together on the deck. The Kiri ninja stood off to the side as the 200-plus Konoha genin and their Jonin senseis formed a group before the Sannin, who looked at them all with a wide grin. It was clear that he, at least, was enjoying this moment. Standing off to the side, not part of the group but not separated either, was Tsunade and Shizun. Now that we've reached Kirigakure, it's time for us to head in. I hope all of you packed enough luggage because we're going to be staying here for at least a couple of months. If you haven't, well, that's too bad. Now then, all of you, grab your stuff and let's get going. Naruto stood alongside Akane, Haku, and Enko. They were surrounded by a lot of people, all of whom hefted their luggage over their shoulders. Haku and Enko also had luggage. Naruto and Akane did not. Everything they needed was sealed inside of their scrolls. As one, the massive group departed the ship, heading down the boarding ramp and stepping onto the wooden planks of the dock. They were traveling to their lodgings, which is being paid for by Kirigakure. Following Ao and his squadron of genin, the Konoha ninja set off into the heart of Kirigakure. Kirigakure was surrounded by a thick mist that made it hard to see. However, dotting the landscape were several large and small buildings. Most were cylindrical in nature, but a few were square. Sans the lack of fog and different architectural styles, this place looked a lot like Konoha in terms of how everything was composed in a spacious manner. Another major difference was how several towering rock formations stuck out of the ground in the middle of the city. Naruto had never seen anything quite like it. While he had been present in this city before, that had been during the civil and there had been far more at stake. He hadn't had the time to go exploring. Even after the battle had been won, Naruto spent most of that time helping the village recover from the battle against Yagura, the former Mizukichi. While he had wandered all over the place back then, that was just because he had been needed to help repair the village. Well, his shadow clones had been needed, at least. Man, I can't see a thing in this fog, Kiba grumbled a complaint. Akamaru, still sitting on his head, barked several times, seemingly in agreement. My Byakugan can see through the fog, but it doesn't look like you are missing anything, Hinata told him. Naruto heard the other Hyuga, Niji, scoff, but he paid it no mind. There are a lot of strong chakra signatures around, Shino said. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered. The hotel they would be staying in was one of the large towers. It looked like a spire. With a height of at least 10 stories, it wasn't the tallest tower present. He had spotted several within the fog that appeared much larger. However, if he went by the lovely garden that surrounded it and the butlers who held the door open for them, it was probably one of the better establishments. What do you think? Asked Akane. It looks nice enough. Naruto shrugged, glancing up at the top of the building before looking back down to study the fountain in front of the building. It was of a beautiful woman with hair hiding one of her eyes. She was shooting water from her mouth, though Naruto understood that it was supposed to be lava. Though it does look like they are trying really hard to impress us by giving us rooms here. Don't be so pessimistic, brat, Enko said with a hearty laugh. Who cares if they're trying to impress us? I never said that was a bad thing, Naruto muttered. The inside only enhanced this impression. Glittering marble covered the floor. A sitting area, presumably for people who were waiting on their rooms, sat off to the side, elegant and soft chairs decorating the space. There was a counter at the back. Standing behind it was a man dressed in the same butler garb as the two who held the doors open. Naruto also noticed that this place had an elevator, a newer piece of technology that only a few establishments could afford. Everyone wait here for a moment, Jiraiya said as he and Ao walked up to the counter and spoke with the butler who, upon nodding several times, rummaged behind the counter and came back with several sets of keys. The two returned. Jiraiya held the keys aloft. "We're going to be divvying up rooms," Jiraiya began explaining how their room situation was going down. "Just like last time, the squads that have been placed together during the march here will be grouped near each other. Likewise, each bedroom has 4 beds, so Genin squads and their Jonin senseis will share a room." Several people groaned, including Akane, though for different reasons. Enko groaned because she'd have to share a room with him and Akane, probably, and Akane groaned because it was clear they would not be screwing each other any time soon. Naruto wasn't sure who he felt more sorry for. "Welcome to Kirigakure," Ao added, almost as an afterthought. The Chunin exams didn't happen for another week. Jiraiya had said that Konoha arrived early because Mei Terumi wanted them to enjoy the sights of the village first, which would explain why they had been given a tour of the village on the second day of their arrival. A female ninja by the name of Hataru and her Genin squad, along with Ao and his Genin squad, had given them a tour of all the important village landmarks. They knew where the academy was, where the library was, and they had even seen the Mizuki's mansion and were given a tour of the inside. Mei Terumi had not been present, though that was to be expected, given how busy she must have been preparing for the Chunin exams. Naruto wasn't sure if he wanted to see her again anyway. After the tour, Ao had informed them that they were allowed to go anywhere except the academy and the Hall of Forbidden Jutsu inside of the library. It wasn't like they could get in anyway. The Hall of Forbidden Jutsu was under heavy guard. A seal array had been used to keep anyone who wasn't keyed into the seal out, though Naruto was sure that wouldn't stop some people from trying. Several training grounds had been reserved for Konoha as well. Since Naruto and Akane couldn't have sex, they spent a good portion of their time sparring either with each other or Haku and Enko. Sometimes Jiraiya would join them to watch, and sometimes he would only appear to take all of them out to lunch. A few of their fellow genin would also join them, though all of them had declined a spar after witnessing the beatdown that Haku and Enko received. Naruto had even occasionally seen Sasuke lurking around, staring at them from afar with his Sharingan eyes. That made him scoff. Since he and Akane didn't want anyone stealing their techniques, they made it a point of fighting using only taijutsu, and they didn't have any special moves that could be stolen like Rock Lee's Leaf Hurricane. Hinata had also been spying on them. That wasn't necessarily unusual, as she often spied on him when they were younger, but the intensity in her stare had become something else. He really wondered if it was all right leaving her like that. Surely he should say something to make her stop. However, Akane had told him to just leave the girl be. If she can't get over the fact that you're mine, then that's her problem. As the week passed, more genin from other villages arrived. Whenever he and Akane walked around the village, he noticed headbands from Kumogakure, Iwagakure, Sunagakure, and even Kusagakure. There was even a squad with Yugakure headbands. Just what a bunch of ninja from a hot spring village could do in an exam like this was beyond him. Finally, the day of the Chunin exams arrived, and Naruto traveled with Akane and Haku to where the first test would be taken. When they arrived after eating breakfast, it was to find several dozen other genin standing before a nondescript building that had no windows and no doors. A sense of anger hung in the air over the other genin as they railed and complained. What the hell is this? How are we supposed to enter if there are no doors? Fucking hell. Is this Chunin exam gypped? Naruto studied the building, which reminded him of the ANBU headquarters in Konoha. Gray. Drab. Kinda boring. That building also had no doors or windows. It was designed that way to keep intruders out. If this building was similarly made, then it was probably for Kiri's ANBU squad, which meant it would also be lined with seals on the inside to keep people from entering without authorization. What do you think? Naruto asked Haku and Akane. This is definitely the place we were told to go, Haku said. And I can't detect any genjutsu being cast over the building. Given that this is the Chunin exam, I believe the test has already begun, Akane added. I'm sure the first part is finding a way into this building. It looks like the ANBU building in Konoha, but I somehow doubt this is Kiri's ANBU headquarters. It's likely just a building designed to look that way. As they continued watching, several genin tried to enter the building through force. One genin even tried launching a fireball jutsu at it. However, a large field sprang up around the building and rebuffed the attack, which exploded against the shield and knocked everyone who was too close to the ground. Even Naruto, standing about 10 meters away, could feel the hot wind pushing against his face. I can't believe someone would be so troublesome as to try and break in like that, Shikamaru said as he wandered up to their side. Chuji and Ino were with them. Behind them was Kiba, Shino, and Hinata. It's obvious that using a jutsu on this thing wouldn't work. If getting in was that easy, then it wouldn't have been part of the test. So you also think it's a test? Naruto asked. Shikamaru sighed and scratched his neck. It's obvious that this part is designed to weed out the genin who are too stupid to take the Chunin exam. I bet more than half of these people are going to fail. Then what say we all work together and figure out how to get in there, suggested Naruto. I'm pretty sure there's either going to be a secret passage somewhere close to the building, or there will be a switch of some kind that'll grant us access on the other side of the building. Hinata? Shino asked. Byakugan. Veins bulged around Hinata's temples as she activated her clan's Jujutsu. With the Byakugan activated, Hinata had near 360-degree vision and could even see chakra. Her eyes narrowed as she searched the area. It looks like there is a lever on the roof of this building. I can also see chakra emanating from the roof. The roof? Got it. Naruto should have figured the entrance would be on the roof. Of course, there was also the chance that it was a trap. Creating a shadow clone, Naruto had it stealthily move to the other side of the building. He waited for several minutes for it to climb up the roof and pull the lever. 1 minute passed. Then 2, and then 3. His clone finally dispelled, sending all of its memories down to him. He blinked several times as he filtered through it. Clever, he muttered. It looks like this barrier not only reflects low-level ninjutsu, but it actually absorbs chakra. Had anyone with a smaller capacity tried to climb this building, they would have run out of chakra before too long. However, the entrance on the roof is now open. Let's travel around to the back and climb up it. All right. Let's get going. Kiba cheered as Akamaru barked. As Naruto led everyone to the back of the building, he realized that teams 10 and 7 weren't with them, nor had they been at the front of the building. Did that mean Niji's and Sasuke's teams were already inside? He shrugged the thought off as he and Akane climbed up the building, unsealed a ladder from their stuff, and attached it to the building so the others could climb up without having their chakra consumed. It may have seemed odd to help people who would be their enemies, but Naruto thought it would be good if they all made it through together. They were all Konoha ninja. What's more, Naruto himself wasn't really invested in the Chunin exam. He was mostly here to meet more people, see more interesting things, and help Akane locate the other Bijou. Besides, half the fun of these exams was watching people you knew flounder. The entrance on the roof, which was basically just a square hole with stairs leading down, looked impossibly dark, as if the inside was rejecting all light. Akane created a fireball above her hand and used it to light their path as they walked down. Their footsteps echoed all around them. It was kind of ominous. Everyone walked slowly, carefully, as the steps were quite steep. After traveling down one flight of steps, they were introduced to another flight. Down, down, down they went, moving ever deeper into the building. Given that this building had only been 3 stories tall, Naruto speculated that they were traveling underground now. This proved to be the case when, upon reaching the last set of stairs, they went through that door. Beyond the door was a tunnel made of bedrock, shaped like a half-cylinder dome and lit with a few oil lamps. With nowhere to go but onward, the group pressed on, moving through the long tunnel. Man, this place is creepy, Kiba said. Akamaru softly barked his agreement. My Kikachu are detecting several dozen chakra signatures up ahead. Shino pushed his shades against the bridge of his nose. That's probably the applicants who already passed, Shikamaru said. So troublesome. Oh, stuff it with the troublesome already, Shika. Ino snapped. Shikamaru just muttered another troublesome under his breath. It wasn't long before they reached the end of the tunnel, traveled through another door, and ended up standing inside of a massive space with about 4 dozen other ninja. They were the genin who already passed. Naruto could see several groups from Konoha, Suna, Iwa, Taki, Kiri, Kyumo, and Kusa. It looked like quite a few people passed. Naruto even spotted Team 10, Niji, Rock Lee, and Ten, a little ways off. Man, there's already so many people here, Kiba said in a loud voice. Heh, well, more competition just means more times for me to kick some ass. Mutts are always so boastful, Akane muttered. Haku snickered. What was that? Kiba shouted. Humph, I see you guys all made it, a voice said from their left. It was Sasuke, of course. He stood with Sakura and Sai at his side, a smirk on his face as he crossed his arms. I'm surprised it took you so long. Did you get lost on the way here? Actually, Akane and I overslept, Naruto said. You see, because we haven't been able to have sex, we haven't gotten a good night's sleep, so you two are having sex. Sakura shouted suddenly, her face going as pink as her hair. Naruto winced as Akane plugged his ears. It seemed that while some things had changed, others had not. Sakura was still as loud as ever, even if she didn't speak out as much. Yes, Akane and I are having sex. We're mates. That's sort of how mates show their love for each other. Naruto frowned at the girl as he projected some of his presence onto her. It was just a minor application of chakra, but it gave him, not a menacing aura, but one of power. Do you have a problem with that? Well. No. Sakura shrank back. I was just surprised. Naruto sighed as he released the aura. I guess I can understand that, but you shouldn't be so loud. You're gonna draw unwanted attention to yourself. Sakura shrank into herself as she realized what she'd done, which probably meant she hadn't actually meant to do it. Well, so long as she was remorseful for her actions, Naruto wouldn't say anything further. Truth be told, he didn't have time to waste on Sakura. It's already too late for that, a voice suddenly said. You guys have already drawn a lot of attention to yourselves. Everyone turned as an older boy walked up to them. His white hair, bound by a ponytail, swayed as he walked. Bangs hovered around Onyx's eyes, which were set on a pale face. His dark purple shirt had a high collar that covered his chin. It was sleeveless, which allowed Naruto to see the white undershirt. His pants, the same color as his shirt, ruffled as he walked. He had a white sash, a medical pouch attached to his lower back, and a ninja pouch tied to his left thigh. He gave them all a friendly, reassuring smile. Sorry to bother you, but I thought I'd let you know that you might want to keep it down. Your friend over there can already tell, he pointed at Naruto, but everyone here is on edge. These Chunin exams are no joke. The people taking part have been training for years to have a shot at winning, and your nonchalant attitudes are going to piss them off. It doesn't help that you guys are all rookies. We're sorry. Sakura bowed in apology. We didn't mean to bother anyone. Heh. Kiba grinned. I don't care if we're bothering anyone. I say let them come. I'm not normally. One for agreeing with Mutts, Sasuke said, crossing his arms as a smirk twisted his lips. However, this is one time where I'll agree. Who are you calling a mutt? The white-haired boy shrugged. Suit yourself. I just wanted to warn you guys, especially since there's a lot of talented competition this year. You've got those 3 Suna ninja over there, and then there's those guys from Kyumo. Rumor has it they were trained by the Reikichi's younger brother. Naruto observed the two groups that the boy pointed out. The Suna ninja were an odd-looking bunch. One of them was a girl with blonde hair tied into 4 ponytails, while another was a boy wearing too much makeup and a black cat suit. However, it was the shortest among them who got Naruto's attention. Short red hair, green eyes with black rings of exhaustion around them, and a pale face with the kanji for love on his forehead made up his most notorious features. A white sash went around his left shoulder, and a bandolier made of leather went around his right and held a giant gourd to his back. His shirt was short-sleeved and mesh armbands wrapped around his biceps. The bandolier also had his headband. It wasn't his appearance that caught Naruto's attention. It was his chakra. This boy had quite a lot of it, not as much as him, but still more than any genin should have. That boy has Shikaku sealed inside of him, Akane mumbled. Shikaku, huh? Naruto stared at Gaara, who finally noticed his presence and turned his head. He thought he could feel something in the other boy's gaze. However, before he could figure out what that was, the blonde girl said something that caused the boy to look away. Akane nodded. I had heard a rumor that Shikaku was last spotted traveling toward Suna, though that was almost 60 years ago. None of the other Bijou heard from him after that, or I don't think so. They ended up being sealed soon after Shikaku disappeared, so I'm assuming the technique used to seal us became common knowledge at the time. Naruto didn't find it too surprising that a Jinchuriki would be entered into the Chunin exams. Even a weak ninja could become powerful with a Bijou sealed inside of them, and if that ninja was already strong, then having them take the Chunin exam would show off the village's strength quite well. Should we make contact? Asked Naruto. No. Akane shook her head after a moment. Shikaku and I have a bit of a history. It's best if we wait for a while. Naruto turned his head. What kind of history? The kind that I'd rather not remember. Hearing those words only made Naruto more curious, but he decided to shelf his curiosity for now in favor of looking at the other trio mentioned. They were the Kumo genin. 2 of them, a male and a female, had dark skin. The male had white hair, while the female had red hair. Among them was another woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, and breasts almost the same size as Tsunade's. They didn't look like anything special. However, if they really were trained by the younger brother of the Reikichi, then they were probably quite powerful. You seem to know an awful lot about our competition, Shikamaru said to the white-haired boy. The boy rubbed his neck and grinned sheepishly. Well, I have participated in the Chunin exams about 6 times already. This will make it my 7th. Are the Chunin exams really that hard? Asked Ino. The boy nodded. They aren't just hard. Every year, anywhere from 2 to 500 genin take part in these exams. Only about 10 or 15 ever make it to the final test. Some die during the exam, while others are forced to forfeit. This exam has a 99% failure rate. Naruto listened with only one ear, not truly interested in the conversation happening between the white-haired boy and the others. Haku was paying more attention. Akane was buffing her nails. If you know so much about the Chunin exams, you must have a lot of information on the genin who are taking this test, Sai said. It was the first time Naruto had heard him speak during these exams. The older boy grinned. I do have a good bit of information. He reached into his medical pouch, pulled out a deck of cards, and shuffled them. Every time I participate, I create cards of all the powerful genin who took place. These cards show off the stats of specific genin who caught my eye, though they aren't always accurate. Taking one card from the stack, he infused some chakra into it. Finally paying more attention, Naruto watched as the card went from being blank to displaying the image and statics of a genin from Iwagakure named Kuratsuchi. It displayed the person's ninjutsu, speed, stamina, genjutsu, and taijutsu on a graph. It even had the number of missions this person had been on. How accurate is that? Asked Haku, curious about the card. The mission rate is accurate, the older boy said. I was able to acquire that thanks to some digging I did. It's surprisingly easy to discover a ninja's mission rating. However, the stats are only a quick estimation I made based off what I saw of his or her combat abilities. For example, Kuratsuchi used primarily ninjutsu during the Chunin exams she took, so I have her ninjutsu and hand seal stats higher than the others, but she could have been hiding her true strength. A good ninja only reveals their true strength when needed, so the chances of this being at least slightly inaccurate are high. That makes sense, Haku mumbled. Right? Do you have the stats for us as well? Asked Sasuke, stepping forward. I do. The boy smiled. It was actually easier to get your stats because all of you are Konoha genin like me. Your mission rating is on file, and I work part-time at the hospital, so I have access to your records. While admitting that he had looked through their mission record was disconcerting, Naruto took it with apathy. It didn't matter if he had seen their missions. Naruto was certain that this boy would never know his true strength, since he had never revealed it. It was still a bit disconcerting that this boy could acquire such information so easily, though. Then I want you to look up information on Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke said. Naruto Uzumaki, huh? The boy looked at Naruto before chuckling. All right. If you're curious about your fellow genin, I can do that. However, don't expect me to do this for everyone. I'm making one concession to you guys. I have to keep some cards to myself, after all. Pulling another card from his deck, the boy infused his chakra into it. The profile picture that Naruto had taken for his genin profile appeared on the upper left corner. His name, rank, and gender appeared on the right corner. Down below was the graph showing off his stats. The graph, shaped like a pentagon, revealed that his ninjutsu, stamina, speed, and taijutsu were maxed out, while his genjutsu was low. His missions, located on the bottom left corner, revealed that he had taken 3 A ranks and 20 ranks. This is pretty impressive, the boy said. 3 A ranks and 20 ranks. No C or rank missions at all. Not many genin can boast that. Since you showed off my stats, I hope you don't mind if I ask for yours, Naruto said. After all, it wouldn't be fair to give me such a handicap. I somehow don't think you're all that worried, but sure, I'll show you mine. It's not a big secret. The boy's name was apparently Kabuto Yakushi. He was 19 years old, a genin of Konoha, and male. Well, duh. His stats showed that his ninjutsu and genjutsu were high, but his stamina, speed, and taijutsu were about average. Naruto nodded several times. Thanks. Not a problem. Kabuto smiled as he placed his own card back into the deck and shuffled it before putting it back into his pouch. Since it looked like Kabuto wasn't going to show them any more of his cards, everyone slowly grew silent. A sense of tension mounted now that no one was speaking. Naruto wasn't bothered, but Ino and Chuji kept staring at the older genin, all of whom were glaring at them. It was probably because they were rookies. Rookies were always considered easy marks. Naruto also studied the other genin taking part. Most of them didn't look very powerful, but there were a few who caught his interest. A trio of genin with musical notes on their headband looked interesting if nothing else. One of them was wrapped up like a mummy, while another had spiky hair and ear guards, and the only female wore all camouflage. It was really just the mummy who caught Naruto's attention. That said, he wondered if their jutsu were sound-based. Ao's genin are also taking part in the exams, huh? How interesting. As he spotted Akiha, Kiriha, and Mozu, Naruto thought about saying hi, but before he could travel over to them, a door on the far side of the room opened and 3 people stepped inside. Standing in the center was that Chujiro? Tufty blue hair and dark eyes. Shark-like. Teeth that were a common trait among the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. He wore his forehead protector on the front of his black vest holster, which was also carrying his sword, Hiramakerii. His striped shirt was long-sleeved and he wore glasses connected to ear protectors. His camouflage pants were also a dead giveaway. This was definitely Chujiro. So, he's one of the proctors, huh? The other two ninja with him wore standard hunter-nin garb and masks. Naruto couldn't see anything of them, not their facial features or even an indicator about their gender, so he assumed they were present for extra security. One of them was pushing a tray, upon which two boxes sat. "We will come to the first test of the Chunin exam," Chujiro said. "My name is Chojuro, and I will be your proctor for the first part of the exam." He coughed into his hand. "Before we begin, I would like one person from each squad to step up and take a number from within this box." Everyone looked around, wondering who among them would be the first to reach into the box. A few people looked like they wanted to but hesitated. Going first often meant becoming a guinea pig, and no one wanted that. Naruto decided to step up before anyone else. He appeared before the startled Chujiro as if by magic, though it was really just speed, stuck his hand inside the box, and pulled out a card. As he did, the box beeped and a red light around the lid lit up. "Stand right here, please," Chujiro said with a gesture toward the back. Shrugging, Naruto walked toward the back room and leaned against the wall. One by one, other genin came up, grabbed a card, and moved toward the back. Among the rookies, Shikamaru, Kiba, Sasuke, and Niji all grabbed a card and walked toward the back. Once everyone had grabbed a card, Chujiro began again. "Next, we will be going around to the two who did not get a card. You will be grabbing another card with a corresponding number to one of the cards that's been grabbed. That number will be correspond to the genin you have to interrogate." The words sent a ripple through the crowd of genin. Standing beside Naruto, Shikamaru groaned. "During your time as ninja, you may find yourself being forced to interrogate another, or you might find yourself being the one under interrogation. It's important for ninja to be able to resist and use interrogation techniques. Your jobs will be to force whoever has the corresponding card into surrendering their card to you. However, your comrade has also been captured. You only have half an hour to rescue your comrade and interrogate your prisoner. You will be awarded points based on how well you do. Each action is worth 3 points, so if you manage both, you get 6 points." "I see." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "So I'm going to be interrogated. Meanwhile, Akane and Haku will be interrogating someone else, but they also have to find me. Most interrogations could take days to accomplish. Experienced ninja were resistant to standard interrogation techniques, and even genin had taken basic courses on interrogation, which meant the two genin who weren't being interrogated had to decide what was more important, forcing their prisoner to surrender or rescuing their comrade. The points given would likely give them an advantage on the next test, so on the off chance that a team did accomplish both, they would have a leg up on the competition. Chujiro turned to him and the other genin. "Go find the group with the same number as you. A ninja will come by to deliver you and the other two to your interrogation room." As Naruto went off in search of the people with his number, 10, he couldn't help but grin. This actually sounded kind of fun. Ten-tailed Wolf Anko and the other Konoha Jonin were joined by Jonin from all the other villages. They were stationed inside of a large bar. Brightly lit and furnished with brand new booths and tables, the place reminded her of the more expensive establishments in Konoha's noble district, though the friendly and casual waiters and waitresses disabused the notion that this was a place for nobles. Those types of people had a stick up their asses and didn't enjoy it when others smiled. She was sitting in a large circular booth that could fit a dozen people. Kakashi was on her left and Kurenai her right. Sitting on Kurenai's other side was Asum, who was fortunately not smoking. Mato Guy was next to Kakashi, trying to convince the open pervert to compete with him or something like that. Anko wasn't paying too much attention. They weren't the only ones present. There were several other ninja, including Jiraiya of the Sannin, A.O., a dark-skinned man from Kyumo who had horrible rhymes named Karabi, and a Suna ninja with a head wrap that covered the right half of his face. She had no idea how this group had formed, but she guessed it could have been worse. She could have been sitting with people who smelled like shit. Yo, yo, yo. It's really interesting that you and I would meet here, Sage of Toads. I've always wondered when we'd see each other again, totes. Kurabi, Jiraiya greeted with a wry smile as a waitress poured him some sake. I see you're still rapping. You know it. This killer bee raps like a butterfly and stings like bee. Enko leaned over to whisper into Kurenai's ear. Butterflies don't rap, though. Kurenai giggled, though she also shot her a look that said she probably shouldn't speak about such things in Kurabi's presence. That was a valid concern. After all, this man was the Jinchuriki for the eight-tailed giant ox, the Hachibi. Humph. I hadn't realized the perfect Jinchuriki had taken on students of his own, the Suna ninja, Baki, grumbled. I wasn't planning to, yo, but those kids just tugged my heartstrings, like when I listened to my favorite idol sing. That reminds me, how do you think your kids are going to do in these exams? Asked Asuma. I'm pretty confident in my genin, but I also don't think they'll become chunin. It's too early for them. Then why did you nominate them? Asked Baki. To give them a taste of what being a chunin means, Asuma said. He looked at the ceiling and scratched his beard. These exams are the closest thing we have to showing our students what they'll face when they become chunin, so I want them to have his experience now. That way they'll know how much more growing they need to go through to reach this level. Enko had to hand it to Asuma. He had actually thought this through, which was more than she had expected from him. The man was a good ninja. He wouldn't have been able to become one of the 12 guardian ninja if he wasn't. However, she had never thought him to think that deeply into things. He always struck her as a go-with-the-flow kind of ninja. I think my cute little genin will do pretty well, Kakashi said as he flipped another page of his book. Sakura and Sai have both improved quite a bit since we started training, and Sasuke's strength has increased by leaps and bounds. Kakashi paused for a moment, and Enko could have sworn she saw a pained grimace cross his face, though it was hard to picture since about 3/4 of his face was covered by his mask and headband. Though getting rid of Sasuke's arrogance and pride was more difficult than I had anticipated. That explained why Sasuke had not acted out during the trip here. Enko had thought it was odd at first, remembering the Genin's last day at the academy when their teams were chosen, but it seemed like Kakashi had actually taken to really training his kids. It also sounded like he had beaten the pride out of Sasuke's duck-butt head. She was surprised again. Looked like the Genin weren't the only ones who had changed. My kids are more than ready for this. Mato Guy announced, his teeth sparkling in the light. I held them back a whole year just so they could have more training. I've prepared them as best I can. I believe that my splendid students are all ready to advance to Chunin. You guys can boast about your genin all you want, Baku grunted. However, it doesn't matter how good any of them are. If they end up facing off against my genin, they won't stand a chance. That's some awfully big talk, Kakashi said, flipping yet another page in his book. Talk is cheap, yo. Action is where it's at, like that big old hat. Kurabi added. Enko had no idea what he was saying, but she thought he was agreeing with Kakashi. That was what it sounded like at least. What about you, Enko? Asked Kurenai. How do you think Naruto and those other two will do? I'm not even worried for them. Enko waved a dismissive hand through the air. She honestly didn't care for any of this. Naruto and Akane are going to steamroll over the competition, and Haku's no slouch. I doubt even a Jinchuriki would be a match for them. The word Jinchuriki made Baki twitch, causing Enko to pay him a bit more attention. She'd heard a rumor that the Kazekage had turned his own son into a Jinchuriki. Perhaps there was some truth to that rumor. Ao grunted. I won't deny that your two genin, Naruto and Akane, are likely to do quite well. However, not every contest can be solved with brute strength. If they don't want to fail in this first test, they'll need to show they have more than just power. Neither Anko nor anyone else could disagree with those words. Ten-tailed wolf Akane and Haku had gotten the number 34, same as the mummy man who had gone up and grabbed the card after Naruto. The bandages covering his face covered everything except his left eye. His long-sleeved poncho covered the rest of him, though he also wore a snake-patterned scarf around his neck and a straw raincoat. A soft clinking, the sound of metal, told Akane that he had a weapon hidden inside of his right sleeve. He walked with a hunched back. Like all the other would-be Chunin, Akane and Haku were led through a series of tunnels, which round and split and branched in many directions. Embedded into the tunnel walls were doors with numbers on them. Akane wondered if this tunnel had been built specifically to host the Chunin exam, or if Kirigakure was simply using what already existed for the sake of expedience. Well, it didn't matter to her either way. "This will be your interrogation room," the ninja who showed them the way said as he opened the door to room 297. "Good luck to all of you. This will be fun," Dosu said as he walked into the room. Akane and Haku followed Dosu into the room, which was pretty plain. It only had 4 walls and a chair. The walls were a drab gray, same color as the tunnels, proving that this room had likely been carved out using a combination of earth and water jutsu. The chair sat in the middle of the room, and it was clearly where they were supposed to tie up Dosu to interrogate him. However, before they could even try to chain Dosu to the chair, the genin in question spun around and launched himself at them. "Sorry about this, but I have no intention of letting myself be interrogated by the likes of you. The 2 of you are going to have to die, so I can make my way back to my comrades and Bugwa." Dosu could do absolutely nothing as Akane leapt through the air and landed a spin kick to his face. There was an almost obnoxiously loud crunching sound as Dosu's cheekbones broke underneath her foot. The way his eyes bulged was almost comical. His expression only lasted for 1 second, however, and then he was spinning through the air. Akane watched as the man slammed head first into the wall, denting it. He hung there for a second as though gravity had no effect on him, but then, all at once, he fell flat on his stomach and didn't get back up. "You didn't kill him, did you?" asked Haku, eyeing Dosu as he lay on the ground, dead to the world around him. "Of course not," Akane said. "I made sure to hit him just hard enough to knock him out. Now then, let's tie him up and get this." Interrogation started. "What about Naruto?" asked Haku. Akane looked at him. She raised a single eyebrow. Haku blushed and looked away. "Right. Stupid question. Forget I asked." A grin spread across Akane's face. "Oh, I have no intention of forgetting that. I'm gonna use this for future blackmail material." Haku's shoulders slumped. "You're cruel. Only when the mood strikes me. Now help me tie this guy up." Ten-tailed wolf Naruto had ended up being taken captive by the group from Kyumo. The 2 who had tied him to the chair were named Samui and Karui, who he knew by name because he had asked them on the way to the interrogation room. "All right. Should we beat him into submission now?" asked Karui, a grin on her dark-skinned face. She pounded her fists together. She had no sleeves on her gray shirt, so Naruto had a perfect view of the muscles in her bare arms. Her flak jacket looked nothing like the ones from Konoha. Aside from being all white, it only had one shoulder. He wondered if that even offered much protection. "We're not supposed to beat him into submission," Samui said with a sigh. "We need to make him surrender his card to us." Samui was a study in contrast to Karui. Not only was her skin pale, but she had blonde hair and blue eyes to Karui's red hair and golden eyes. Her clothing was also slightly different. Her shirt was short-sleeved instead of sleeveless, and her flak jacket looked like it only went around her stomach. The reason was probably because of her breasts, which looked about the same size as Tsunade's. "You know," Naruto began. "Samui's boobs are way bigger than yours, Karui. Why are you so flat?" After getting over her initial shock at someone flat out stating that she had no tits, several veins appeared on Karui's forehead. The murderous expression on her face was truly impressive. "Why you?" She raised her hand and threw a punch. Naruto hardened his body with chakra, using a very basic technique to make his skin stronger than steel. Karui screamed as she jerked her hand back, shaking it out as though she had just punched a concrete wall with all her might. She might as well have. Naruto sighed in relief. That was too close. Had she punched him any harder, he might have dispelled. "I need to last at least a little longer." "You know he said that to rile you up?" Samui asked with another sigh. She seemed to do that quite often. Sigh. Karui stopped blowing on her poor, bruised knuckles long enough to cast Samui a withering glare. It didn't do much. Tears were stinging the redhead's eyes, making her glare less than potent. "What's your point?" Shaking her head, Samui gave Karui a pointed look. "My point is that you shouldn't let yourself get riled up so easily. If you let yourself get angry during an interrogation, then you are the one being controlled instead of the other way around. An interrogator must remain in control of her own emotions and the situation at all times." Karui clicked her tongue. But she didn't say anything else, allowing Samui to turn her attention to Naruto. It was clear to him that she was the leader among this group. They studied each other for quite a while. Well, Samui stared at Naruto like he was a puzzle that she needed to solve. Naruto was staring at her tits. How big were those things anyway? 100 centimeters. 120. They were massive. "You must suffer a lot of back pain, huh?" asked Naruto. If Samui was surprised or bothered by his comment, she didn't show it. In fact, she made an exaggerated motion of reaching behind her to rub her neck. This, of course, made her breasts jiggle. Another tongue click alerted him to the angry Karui. He understood. Samui's teammate was jealous that she had such massive knockers. "I do get a lot of back pains and stiff shoulders from this," Samui admitted. "You don't know how hard it is to lug these things around." As if to emphasize her point, Samui casually hefted both breasts in her hands, making a point to reveal just how soft and squishy her breasts were. "Not only do they weigh a ton, but I have to constantly strain my back to keep it straight. I'm always walking with a slight slouch because they're so heavy." She was obviously using seduction tactics on him. Anko was a master of using her innate sexiness to seduce enemy ninja into spilling their secrets. He found that odd considering she was still a virgin, but it was whatever. In either event, this lady might have been hot as hell, but Naruto had a foxy mate who was about 9,000 times hotter. He also got more sex than most people had a right to. That might not seem like such a big deal, but Naruto got enough nighttime shenanigans that he wasn't the least bit dissatisfied with his sex life. Basically, that meant he wasn't going to be falling for this woman tactics anytime soon. "Must be difficult," Naruto said. "If you'd like, I could massage your back for you. I may just take you up on that." Samui swung her leg around until she was straddling Naruto's lap. Her thighs were soft and warm. This girl was plumper than Akane. She had a large combination of fat and muscle, which meant her thighs were a lot thicker. He was sure that any man aside from him would have committed genocide to be where he was right then. As Naruto registered this, Samui leaned into him, until her breasts were smashing against his chest. She wasn't wearing a bra. "However, first, why don't you surrender to me?" Naruto pretended to think about it, feigning a glance down her shirt, which revealed more cleavage than anyone had a right to see. Out of the corner of his eye he saw Karui's face turn as red as her hair. At the same time, images flooded his mind that did not belong to him. "Well, I suppose I could, but..." Samui raised an eyebrow as Naruto dragged this out. "But what?" "But I'm just a clone." "Huh." And with that, Naruto, or rather, the clone that Naruto had replaced himself with before the Kirigakure ninja had taken the three of them into this interrogation cell, disappeared with an explosion of smoke. Ten-tailed wolf. It only took around 2 minutes, but Naruto had finally found a microwave. It was located in a room that he guessed was for the proctors. After breaking and entering, he had wandered in, spotted the fridge, counter, and microwave, and proceeded to make himself some instant ramen. The room wasn't small. About 3 meters behind him were several couches, and there were even a few tables with chairs around them. He guessed this was something like a rec room. Didn't Konoha have one of these for Jonin when they weren't on the job? Well, it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was getting his ramen. It didn't take long to cook ramen, about 10 seconds to pour in the water, 3 minutes to cook it, and another minute to let it cool down. Though that did make him wonder, why was it called instant ramen? It's not like it was truly instant. They should have called it 3-minute ramen, or maybe even 4-minute ramen. Damn false advertising. His instant ramen was soon ready. Now the only question was, should he find a place to eat it, or should he eat it there? He supposed he should locate Akane and Haku. They were his comrades in this, and the test wouldn't finish until they were reunited or the time limit ran out. Then again, he was pretty sure they were fine. They also had to know that he was fine. It was him, after all. As if to put a damper on his ideas, the door opened and in walked Chujiro. The man paused upon seeing him. Naruto stared. Chujiro stared. They entered a short staring contest before the swordsman's eyes grew so wide they looked about the same size as fish cakes. Naruto slurped up some ramen noodles, belched, and then grinned. "How you doing, Chujiro?" "Air." Chujiro needed a moment before his brain could conceive an adequate response. "Do I know you?" "Of course not. I'm just a genin here to take the Chunin exam." "Oh." Chujiro needed another moment. Then. "Why are you here?" "Huh. Well, I was on my way back to my teammates, but then I realized I was hungry, so I decided to get some food." "Aha." Chujiro didn't seem to understand the situation, though Naruto didn't mind this at all. He slurped up some more ramen noodles as he began making his way toward the door. "Take care of yourself, Chujiro," Naruto said as he left the baffled man behind. Wandering the halls, Naruto wondered where his two companions were. He was pretty decent at sensing chakra, but there were so many signatures there that it made sensing two signatures in particular difficult. As he was walking down the hall, Naruto felt another presence coming closer to him. It was a strong chakra signature. Naruto didn't recognize this one, which meant he wasn't a genin from Konoha. There was also a second chakra signature mixed in with the first. Could that be? As he rounded the corner, Naruto caught sight of the Sand genin with red hair walking from the opposite direction. This didn't deter him. He walked right past the Suna genin and continued on, not even pausing when the other boy stopped walking. "You there," Gaara said. Naruto stopped walking. "You know, it's rude to interrupt someone when they have an important date. Are you the one who will make me feel alive? And you're ignoring me." Naruto felt the killing intent before the attack came, a massive wave of sand that flew from the gourd and came after him with obvious ill intent. Avoiding it would have been easy. He could have leapt back and just run, but he didn't. Turning around on a dime, Naruto channeled wind chakra into his fist. He reared it back and slammed it into the incoming wave of sand. Aside from the loud thunderclap echoing across the hall, all of the sand that had been set to ram into Naruto exploded everywhere. "Don't you know that it's rude to attempt murder without at least giving your name first?" asked Naruto. Gaara stared at him for a long moment before. "My name is Gaara of the desert, and I am going to be the one who kills you." "Whatever you say, bud." Unconcerned with what Gaara may try, Naruto turned his back to the Suna genin and continued on his way. He kept one ear open, though. It wasn't long before the sound of receding footsteps reached him. Shrugging, he wandered the halls as he tried to track Akane's unique signature. It was tough because she was masking her signature, so it blended in well with all the other ones. Of course, if she did release her powers willy-nilly, it would likely cause a huge panic amongst the sensor ninja. Fortunately, just as he was turning another corner, a loud yell echoed all around him. It was a shrill sound. Naruto had heard this kind of sound before. It was the kind of sound someone gave only when they were undergoing the most brutal of torture. Following the sound to its source, Naruto found himself standing before a door. Even though it looked like all the other doors, he could tell that behind this door was the person he was looking for. Akane's familiar signature was behind the door, diminished, smaller than he was used to because she was hiding it, but still a powerful force to be reckoned with. Naruto opened the door and walked inside. What he found was about what he expected. Akane was standing before the ninja she was supposed to be interrogating. Said ninja was sitting on the chair upside down. His back was where his butt should have been and his legs were sticking in the air. The ninja's sandals had been removed, which allowed Akane to mercilessly tickle the man into complete submission. Naruto had no idea how long they had been at this, but by this point in time, the ninja, the mummy man with the musical note headband, had gone red in the face. If Akane kept that up, the person she was interrogating might very well die from laughter. What is wrong with you? Damn it. I already. Ha 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 ha. Oh ha ha ha. I already gave up. Haku was standing off to the side as Akane tortured the man. He had this fascinated yet disgusted look, like he couldn't believe someone could be tortured through tickling, but now that he had seen it for himself, he was sickened beyond compare. Given that it looked like the man being tortured was about to begin bleeding out the mouth, Naruto wasn't sure he could blame the boy. Walking further in, Naruto stopped beside Haku and waited for himself to be noticed. "You're here," Haku said after several minutes. "Yup." Naruto nodded before gesturing to Akane's tickle torture. "How long has this been going on?" "From the moment we got here, pretty much." Continuing his staring, Haku's already wrinkled nose wrinkled further, showing the depth and breadth at his disgust for Akane's depravity. "The man has already surrendered, but she keeps torturing him anyway." "That's because I was bored," Akane said as she stopped torturing the poor genin, who passed out seconds later. "Naruto, I see you made it here safely." Naruto grinned before slurping more of his ramen. "I would have been here sooner, but I was looking for a microwave." "A microwave?" From the flabbergasted expression that Haku wore, he clearly didn't understand why Naruto had been looking for a microwave. "For my ramen." Naruto held his ramen cup aloft. Haku suddenly deadpanned. "Of course. How could I have been so stupid as to assume you'd have a valid reason for wanting to find a microwave during a test to see if we're fit to become Chunin?" "I don't know." Naruto smiled brightly. "That's something you should ask yourself." Ten-tailed wolf. After successfully completing both the task of forcing someone to surrender via interrogation and escaping from another interrogator, Akane, Naruto, and Haku were met with one of the ninja who were proctoring the exams. They were led into a waiting room, where several other genin were already lounging around. Naruto caught sight of the Suna genin, Team 10, and a group from Amigakure. The room itself wasn't too big. If he had to judge, he'd say it was about the size of his swimming pool. 6 long tables extended from the entrance all the way to the back, where a lady stood behind a counter preparing food. Naruto guessed those who finished early were allowed to eat. In fact, that's where Haku and Akane went immediately after being told by the Chunin proctor that they could grab a bite. "I'm famished," Akane said. "Torturing that idiot took a lot of energy." "I'm sure," came Haku's dry response. Naruto sat down at an empty seat and looked at the others. Gaara was already present, sitting with his 2 comrades and staring at him with unusual intensity, but given their confrontation a few minutes ago, that wasn't too surprising. Niji and Rock Lee were also there. While the bowl-cut boy waved at him, the Hyuga ignored him. How rude. Tenten had also spotted them the moment they came in. She was staring right at him as though watching him so she'd be prepared for his pounce. He winked at her. She looked away. Your team passed, too? A voice asked to his left. Man, how troublesome. Naruto turned around to spy Shikamaru, Chuji, and Ino standing before him. While Chuji looked a little worse for wear, Shikamaru and Ino were unruffled. This test was probably easy for them. Ino had her father's jutsu, which specialized in interrogation. She'd probably just used her jutsu to control people and forced them to surrender. Are we really that troublesome? Asked Naruto. You and your mate are more than troublesome. Shikamaru slumped into a seat and rested his head on the table. Naruto winced as the boy's face made an almost lazy splat against the metal surface. Everything you two do is beyond troublesome. It's like you were made for trouble. That so? Naruto looked at Ino and raised an eyebrow. Don't mind him. Ino smacked the back of Shikamaru's head, eliciting a grunt. He's just upset because he had to work during this test. I had to work because you two made me work, Shikamaru grunted. At least you weren't the one being interrogated, Chuji said as he munched on a bag of chips. That wasn't fun. You know they're serving food over there. Naruto pointed to the counter in the back, which Akane and Haku were returning from. Why don't you grab a bite? I think you've more than earned it. Oh. Good idea, Naruto. Thanks. As Chuji wandered toward the counter, Akane and Haku sat down beside him. Shikamaru had already fallen asleep by this point. Naruto didn't know if he was tired or just lazy, possibly a combination of both, but Ino was still lively as ever. She quickly sat on the opposite side of the table and engaged in conversation. So. I remember you telling everyone during the team selection that you were Naruto's mate. The grin on Ino's face was quite telling. Naruto had seen it before on gossipmongers. No surprise there. Back during their academy days, Ino had been the queen of gossipmongers. What's that all about? It's a lot like marriage, Akane said, playing along. Ino's eyes widened. So you two are married? When did this happen? A while ago, and it's not an official marriage, Akane corrected. However, the bond he and I share is far deeper than a slip of paper from the government office. We're married in all but paper. Wow. I had no idea it was that serious. Ino paused and, finally, the hint of a blush spread across her cheeks as she leaned in. Despite her whispering, Naruto clearly heard her ask, so, how far have you two, gone? Have you, done it? Naruto wondered if Ino had even been listening to his and Sakura's conversation half an hour ago. Clearly not. Well, she probably just used that as an opening line to get the juicy details. Of course we have, Akane answered, grinning when Ino's face burst with enough color to outshine a bonfire. You have? All the way. All the way, in many different positions, at many locations. I'm beginning to think Naruto and I should come up with our own sex positions soon, since we've already done all the ones we know. Ino, for all her acting out, was still a pure girl, a virgin in every sense of the word. Naruto had little doubt that she only knew about sex because of their education at the academy. He remembered her and the other girls all blushing heavily when one of the retired jonin had taught them about how to use seduction on a target for assassination. Knowing that someone she was personally acquainted with was sexually active probably embarrassed her to no end. This conversation is so troublesome, Shikamaru grumbled. Could you two please stop talking? I can't sleep like this. Are you sure you don't want them to stop because you're also blushing? Naruto asked with a grin. Shikamaru turned his head. Shut up. More genin entered through the doors as time passed. Sasuke and Team 7 came in not long after Shikamaru, Ino, and Chuji. They didn't sit with Naruto and the others, but that was apparently just because Sasuke wanted to stare at him from a distance. It was kind of disconcerting, but not anywhere near as bad as when Team 8 arrived. The way Hinata drilled holes into the back of his eyes as she sat down and watched him was unnerving. He was really beginning to wonder if there might have been something wrong with the girl, but he couldn't say one way or the other. Checking out the area one more time, Naruto saw that quite a few genin teams had passed. There was the Suna team, of course, plus all of the rookie genin from his year and Team 10. There were a few more Konoha teams, including the one belonging to Kabuto. The Kumo team that he had duped also passed. Naruto grinned at them when Karui spotted him. Her scowl had made him chuckle. He and Akane would have a good time riling up that one, he was sure of it. Though the other two, Samui and the boy whose name he didn't know, looked a lot more composed. Akiha, Kiriha, and Mozu were also there, sitting several tables away. They were keeping mostly to themselves. A few more Kiri ninja had also made it past the first test. From a general observation of the various headbands present, the vast majority of ninja who had made it past the first test were Konoha and Kiri ninja. Mixed among them were ninja from IWA, Kumo, Kaminari, Kusa, AIM, and several others. Naruto counted a total of 78 people, meaning 26 teams had passed. While everyone was sitting around, the doors suddenly slammed open and in walked two people. One of them was Chujiro. The other was a Jinchuriki who went by the name Utakata. He was a tall man with a thin build. He didn't have the muscle definition of most ninja, which made many surprised when they discovered that he was a ninja. Pale, golden-brown eyes were eclipsed by dark brown hair that reached to his shoulders. One side of his face was covered by bangs, hiding that eye from view. The light blue kimono that he wore was longer than average and trailed across the floor as he walked. Likewise, the sleeves were long enough to hide his hands. The kimono was adorned with a small emblem of 3 bubbles on the back. Because it hung so loosely on his thin frame, his chest was exposed, also revealing the bamboo jug and pipe that he carried on him at all times. A frown, made to look all the more severe because of how gaunt his face was, appeared as he surveyed the crowded hall of genin. After several seconds of simply observation, he turned to Chujiro. "There are a lot more genin than I thought there'd be. Was your test not hard enough?" Chujiro blushed and rubbed his head. "Well, I tried to make it as difficult as I could, but you really need to work on your confidence." Utakata sighed, then straightened his spine and stared at the genin, his face colder than a block of ice. "My name is Utakata, a jonin of Kirigakure and the proctor of your next test. I feel like I should mention this before we begin administering the second test." He trailed off to build suspense. It was working. A number of genin had broken out into a cold sweat thanks to a combination of his lack of answer and the mild killing intent pouring off him. Naruto was just impressed at the stoic Utakata had become capable of such theatrics. With a mild grin and some more killing intent wafting from him like water leaking from a broken vase, Utakata continued. "In this next test, at least half of you are going to fail." With this ominous proclamation of failure for at least 50% of the genin present, the second test of the Chunin exam began. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. This is Raven Sage signing off.